Hi, this is Bruce Lewis, and I have another video that I'm making right now about How Truthful. This one is unscripted, and the reason I'm making another video is because I really feel like this is an exciting tool for bringing focus, clarity, and truth with just something that's really simple. And I want you to see with an example that comes from my own life. This is something that I did a few years ago when the COVID-19 vaccine first came out. Now, in my last video, maybe I said that in 2019, the How Truthful thing didn't take off and I didn't do anything with it for a few years. That wasn't exactly what I should have said. I should say I didn't make any improvements to it for a few years, but it's not that I didn't do anything with it. I used it myself. Especially when there were people saying all kinds of different things about the vaccine, and I wanted to put it all together and make sure I made a good decision. So the focus here was the statement, I should get vaccinated in the USA against COVID-19. The reason I said in the USA is there were debates about the effectiveness of the vaccine in other countries that didn't use actually even the same vaccine. So I wanted to keep it kind of focused. And the con argument, the thing one might say to argue that I should get vaccinated is false, is there are risks, including death, associated with getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Now, this is true. If you just believe it's true, you don't need to click through. But suppose that you are doubtful that there are any risks whatsoever with getting vaccinated, you can click through. And now we have focus on this one statement taken out of the context of the overall argument so that we can reduce our bias. And we are evaluating the statement. There are risks, including death, associated with getting vaccinated against COVID-19. I had two simple arguments that would say, yes, there are risks because vaccines kick your immune system into high gear, and kicking your immune system into high gear carries risks, including death. People do die from things their immune system does to them, so that's not something that you can just deny. But the heart of the argument is here in the pro section. Someone arguing for I should get vaccinated would say remaining unvaccinated against COVID-19 is more risky than getting vaccinated, again, in the USA being the context. So that's really the question. It's not you don't have to say that the vaccine is risk-free in order to say it's a good idea. You just have to say, you have to be able to say truthfully, it is more risky to remain unvaccinated than to get vaccinated. So let's look at that argument. Okay, actually we'll look at the cons first. So we are focusing in on this question, which is the core question that would lead to the overall decision. And the thing that people talk about when they say that you should not, that this is not true, that the risk is probably the other way around, they point out that there were deaths reported to the vaccine adverse event reporting system after getting a COVID vaccine, which works out to a 1 in 27,000 death rate, and that is true. That did not really sway me because I did not expect that getting a vaccine would make you immortal. Some people are going to die, unfortunately, anyway, and 1 in 27,000 is actually pretty good. Now, some people say that there is underreporting of events to this vaccine database, and it may be much higher as a result. So there were let's see, there's been criticism for underreporting events in general. And the other thing that you have to be able to say is that death is equally underreported as other adverse events. So there's an argument against that. Healthcare workers are required by law to report severe adverse events, including death. So that, to me, makes it really unlikely that you could say that the chances are much higher than 1 in 27,000. Now, there are articles out there that say that underreporting could be as much as like a factor of 100. So worst case, we are talking 1 in 270. But I don't believe that worst case. So that was my reasoning there. Let's see. Long-term effects of mRNA vaccines are unknown. I find that to be unlikely for several reasons. One is that your body disposes of mRNA quickly. That's what I've been told, and I have no reason to disbelieve that. And it seems quite likely that the non-mRNA ingredients in the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are harmless. The lipids, I haven't heard anyone say that the lipids involved are dangerous. The salts, the sugar, the Moderna vaccine ingredients are similar to Pfizer. So that's where that came from. The kinds of adjuvants that you find in a lot of vaccines aren't even present in the mRNA vaccine. And historically, vaccine monitoring has historically shown that side effects generally happen within 6 weeks of receiving a vaccine dose. So at the point when I was making this decision, it seemed like we were in a position to really know what kind of adverse effects were likely. I wasn't one of the first people to rush out and get it. So let's see. Oh, one of the arguments that was going around was that antibodies that attack the spike protein will also attack a protein in the placenta, preventing successful pregnancy. And so I did look into that, trying to get all the risks, since this wasn't just for me, it was for my entire family. And the pro argument that is true is there are stretches of the same genetic instructions on the SARS thing and something on the placenta. However, it seems unlikely that there would be a match based on an article that I read, which seemed persuasive. But more persuasive, they did the Pfizer vaccine trial, and there were 12 women who conceived during the Pfizer vaccine trial, which wasn't like one of the things they were trying to look for, but it just happened. So that doesn't seem like it was really causing issues with that. And no loss of fertility has been reported among the millions who had received the vaccines since their authorization when I was doing this. From that same article. Okay, so that I judged false. That deaths did happen. That was true, but not enough to scare me too much. Let's see. COVID-19 is a dangerous disease worth avoiding. This is a key part of if you're arguing for the main statement that remaining unvaccinated is more risky. So let's dig into here. The big one being people who contract COVID at ages 50 to 59 have a 1.3% chance of dying. So even if I did believe that 1 in 270 figure, that would mean that if I were to assume that every death that followed getting the vaccine was caused by the vaccine, and I assume that they were underreported by a factor of 100. So worst case of worst case, which totally unrealistic. Even then, with all that exaggeration, the chances of dying from the vaccine would still be less than the chance of dying when you get COVID. And I say when you get COVID because, it seemed like everybody I knew got it. I did eventually get it. A couple years later. So that's made me think it's a dangerous disease worth avoiding. Then that some people suffer long-term neurologic symptoms despite never having been hospitalized for COVID-19. Like you can get COVID-19 and it's not a severe case necessarily to get you hospitalized, and yet you still lose your sense of smell or sense of taste for a long time. This is a disease that's messing around with your nervous system. And yeah, that's scary to me, and that's more scary to me than kicking my my immune system into high gear by getting the shot. Okay, and now here's this one. So during this time period, which was basically during the time COVID was big, there were more deaths than expected in the U.S. 522,000 excess deaths. Okay, and so people saying, well, all these deaths are being reported as COVID deaths when they're deaths from other causes. The reason I was looking at excess deaths was to deal with that argument. Like, you can say that they took this death and moved it over to this category, but that doesn't explain if there's a bunch more deaths, they are coming from somewhere. That to me is pretty good evidence that COVID-19 is a dangerous disease worth avoiding. Now, people saying that it's not so bad, they would say, well, for young, healthy people, COVID-19 carries negligible risk. There are arguments for and against that. So it does seem likely that if you're under 40, you have a low chance of dying if infected with COVID-19, 1 in 500. So I put that as mostly true because I don't know if 1 in 500 is necessarily that great. Like, I wear my seatbelt every time I get in the car, and the chances of being in an accident where I would die in a car are definitely less than 1 in 500, and yet I want to address that risk. So that's why it's not like all the way true. So yeah, that I put that here as like, if you're making the pro argument, one thing you might say, what you probably should say, is when you're saying this, you are implicitly saying a 1 in 500 chance of dying of a disease is negligible risk. So I put that as debatable. The other thing I put as debatable is people who are healthy now can safely assume they will still be healthy immediately prior to whenever they contract COVID-19. So that's part of, if you want to say that for young, healthy people, COVID-19 carries negligible risk, that's part of the assumptions you're making. So I made it explicit there because, yeah, you're healthy now, but, if you're not healthy, if at some point you are not healthy, you probably want your immune system to know how to deal with COVID-19 at that time. One of the arguments against it carrying negligible risk is the long COVID thing. Some studies have suggested that some children experience lingering symptoms after the infection. That's one of the things that makes COVID-19 something that I really want to minimize the impact of in any way possible. So that was focusing in on, for young, healthy people, COVID-19 carries negligible risk. I'm going to stop for a second and again give you the pitch on How Truthful. Look how focused this is. Some of you are possibly disagreeing with me. You don't think that the vaccine was a good idea, but you can't deny that I make my reasoning clear, and if you disagree with me, you can probably point to exactly where the difference of opinion is. Okay, and maybe some of you are agreeing, okay, yes, it is a good idea to get the shot, and Bruce, why did you even need to do all this? But I understand some people need persuading, and I've written this really big essay that gives all the same reasoning that you're giving and more. Well, no one's going to read your essay. Okay, here's the format that really can convey truth concisely, clearly, in a focused way, and at every point you know exactly what part of the argument you're talking about. All right, zooming back out. COVID-19 is a dangerous disease worth avoiding. The next argument against it being a dangerous disease worth avoiding that was going around a couple of years ago, there are well-known medicines that can effectively treat COVID-19. Okay, So hydroxychloroquine and zinc can effectively treat COVID-19. I put that as debatable. When I checked checked this out, there was like one study that might have shown that. There's another study that might not have shown that, and the panel that decides these things, they just didn't have enough data to recommend either for or against the use of zinc for the treatment of COVID-19. Now, given the seriousness of the disease, effectively treat to me means something where like I can feel pretty good if I take this stuff, that I will get the treatment I need and be fine. Well, the amount of confidence that one could have, even though it's possible that hydroxychloroquine and zinc could have done something, and obviously in the right doses. I know there were terrible things happening where people would take the wrong doses of these things. But that's not enough to give me confidence. So I left this as debatable and not enough to really, it's mostly false that you can effectively treat COVID-19 with those things that were there. Ivermectin was another one. And again, there was just insufficient data. I think there may have been a study or two where it looked like something. Ivermectin was the one where people would sometimes take horse-sized doses, which you really don't want to do. I think human-sized doses are probably harmless. Not a doctor here, but just relaying what I've heard on the news. However, why take something? I don't believe in taking medicines you don't need and that you don't know will help you. And I definitely don't want to rely on a medicine that we're not sure is going to save me from this disease that's doing weird things to my nervous system that we don't understand yet. So that's how I landed on unlikely or mostly false for that argument against COVID-19 being a dangerous disease worth reporting. Okay, so the last thing this argument was that COVID-19 statistics are meaningless because of inaccurate tests and misattributed deaths. And I tossed a bunch of things that I was hearing in here that weren't particularly persuasive to me. There were things that politicians did in January showing that would demonstrate that they weren't actually concerned about COVID-19. And then people were saying many politicians showed they were hypocrites about masks, travel, and things like that. Well, they did the opposite of what was supposedly recommended. And I looked into that, and that was true, and it did not do a thing to persuade me how I should treat this medical question. It's really not a political question, and what politicians do or fail to do was not going to sway me. Reporters at the White House were overheard saying it was all for show. I never found out whether that was true or false, but it wouldn't sway me anyway. Let's see. Even on the Hill in May 2021, when they really should know better, politicians were acting hypocritical around COVID-19 as if they aren't afraid of it. That seemed to be mostly true. I mean, that was happening. Obviously, not all politicians were doing that, but it was happening. And again, that did not sway me. I still ended up rating it false because the misattributed deaths thing, like I explained before, spikes in excess deaths, that when I looked those up, they corresponded to reported spikes in COVID-19 cases. And deaths. So looking at the graphs, I was pretty sure that something's going on, that there were statistics that really did mean something. For this to be false, there has to be something else that's causing lots of people to die in a widespread fashion in a way that corresponds to the cases. That seemed extremely unlikely to me. So I came out true on it. COVID-19 is a dangerous disease worth avoiding. And what's left here? So in the other pro arguments, okay, one thing that people might say if they are arguing for the statement that remaining unvaccinated is more risky, they might be saying vaccines are 100% effective at preventing COVID-19 infection, transmission, and death. That's not true. I'm sure that's not true. Vaccines rely on your immune system, and your immune system is not 100% effective. So that just can't be true. But I put it in here to kind of make it clear this is what I'm not saying. Again, How Truthful is awesome because it lets you make clear, yes, I know about this argument, but this is not something I'm saying. Vaccines are highly effective at preventing COVID-19 infection, transmission, and death. This is, if it's true, this is kind of the center of things, so I'll come to it last. The other one being a review of available clinical information, including death certificates, autopsy, and medical records, has not established a causal link from deaths to COVID-19 vaccines. And there was a page that talked about that. You can look at it yourself if you want. But I believed it and decided that was true. Vaccines are highly effective at preventing COVID-19 infection, transmission, and death. Let's see, at preventing infection, that was basically looking at the studies that were there. That's the source that I read in detail and came out saying this is true. At preventing COVID-19 death, there's a lot of information down underneath this, and I'll put a link in the description of this video. At preventing transmission, this was the controversial one because they were granted emergency use based on reducing symptoms only and not based on preventing transmission. Okay. Which, I just left that there. I didn't look into it further. But I did look elsewhere and found that people vaccinated with Pfizer in Israel, they had a 4-fold lower viral load than unvaccinated people. And this one here, this is key to the way that I think about all of this COVID-19 stuff, is viral load has been identified as a key driver of transmission. To me, how much virus you get does it makes sense to me that you're more likely to get the disease the more that you're exposed to. So if people with the vaccine have less viral load in them, then it makes sense they're going to transmit less. So that's where I landed on that one. So the fact that the vaccines are highly effective at preventing COVID-19 infection, transmission, and death, that argued for the idea that remaining unvaccinated is more risky than getting vaccinated. And so that's why I eventually said, true, I should get vaccinated in the USA against COVID-19. Okay, now I want to address again people who might disagree with this. It doesn't really matter what my opinion is about any medical or political or any other issue. All that matters is except for the issue of free speech. And How Truthful is set up and intended to allow you to express yourself all you want. In fact, if you were to use How Truthful and put your argument for why this is actually false, the next thing that I intend to do improvement-wise is to make it so that people can get to your arguments from mine. So I can put my thing out here that I should get vaccinated, and it will not be hidden that there are people who think differently, and people will be free to go and look at the other arguments. You're not going to find another place on the internet where you get to do that. You try to put up a video in YouTube refuting what I'm saying now, YouTube will probably take it down. Medical misinformation. You want free speech? This is where it is. So And as I said in my other video, I don't think ad-supported is a good idea for a site where people are trying to ascertain truth. So you're going to have to plunk down your $10 per year. So yes, you have to actually spend 83 cents or so per month. It'll be a one-time payment because part of the purpose is to keep people from abusing the site, and so they lose their $10 if they make some like spam account or something. And I really think you should give it a try. Now, if you agree with me, again, like I said, no one's reading your essay. This is the best tool that we have so far. This simple little first iteration that I've made is the best tool that there is to fight misinformation. It brings focus and clarity to arguments that you are not going to get anywhere else. So if you think it's worth me keeping going on this and making further improvements and maintaining it, then I think it's worth you investing your $10 and get a premium account, even if you don't need it, even if you, for your own purposes, the free version where everything is stored on your own computer. If that was enough, still plunk down the $10, show me that it's worth doing this and that I should keep working on this full time and not go back to finding a full-time employer. It's really important. Please act today. HowTruthful.com. Go to the account part and get started. Or if you really want to check it out first and not go for the $10 version, on the left there's that button that says opinion. You can go ahead and just start using it. You don't have to log in, and it will store your arguments on your local machine. But do try it. I think that it's going to make a big difference to the world if this takes off. Thank you.